All right, you guys, it is Tuesday. It is time to rise and thrive. It's actually the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So hopefully you guys are taking a little bit of a breather. I know last minute stuff before Thanksgiving is always challenging. And if you're in the real estate world, we know that you've been dealing with the last couple of years of a really challenging market. And at a time when we're supposed to be super thankful, which I always am, I know a lot of people in the holiday time can go through some downtimes and some levels of uncertainty. So today's podcast, it's Rise and Thrive #1, and we like to focus on faith, family, finances, and fitness. And I've got one of the smartest people in the whole wide world coming on today. And I thought, what timing to have him come on last week of November, week of Thanksgiving, the elections beyond, like the real estate market we hope is turning around and we're headed into a new year. Sharran is the president of Real and one of the smartest people, like I said, I've ever met. And so we're going to get to hear a little bit of him. So thank you so much, Sharran, for doing this.
No, I'm super grateful to be here. I just want to do a one call out for you because I don't think a lot of people realize how much effort this takes, like finding great people, making sure the timing works out, being on the show, doing the pre and post production, making sure it's delivered. And you do all of this, you give so freely. And I just want to thank you for putting so much effort into helping the agents and the tribes that you're a part of, because you don't have to do this. And while they don't have to listen, you don't have to do this. And it takes a lot of effort because I run a podcast too, and I know how much effort it takes to do all of this. So just want to tell you, thank you for doing this.
It's crazy, Sharran, because literally I've had it running for about 3 years now, and I took a little bit of a hiatus last year, but it started, I had it called Anything But Average, did that for about a year and a half, and then transferred into Walk Away Wealthy with Wisdom. And then I took a break because I was overwhelmed with my plate was full, but it was like such a need still to get back out there. And I was like, you know what am I laser focused on? I just want to talk about that. And then it came to me, it was like rise and thrive. Like we need to rise up and we all need to be thriving. And gosh, who knew we were going to go through 2 years in real estate? And now what they're saying is the worst year in real estate in 35 years. Sharran, can you give a little bit of your backstory for those that don't know you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got in the real estate business by accident. I'll tell you how all of that happened. So I'm an engineer by trade. I built my first business as a software engineer in the Silicon Valley. So we got to build and grow a technology-based business, raised a bunch of money for it. We were able to build and grow and sell that during the technology boom, which was very cool. And then I was I traveled the world, which is very cool. I went to business school, and then I was a banker at Goldman Sachs and at Credit Suisse. And then at that time, I invested in a small real estate company in California. It had one office and roughly 33 agents in Beverly Hills. And we found out that the then CEO of that company was embezzling, which is really sad. And it's like a one office operation. Don't embezzle, buddy. Like, it's crazy, right? And so I actually took a leave of absence from investment banking to buy out the then CEO. And then I was like, and we looked for a CEO for a while, couldn't find one. So I said, wouldn't it be cool if I actually built a plan to run this business? So we took that business from one office and 33 agents to 22 offices, 700 agents. We sold that business to Douglas Elliman. It was one of the largest transactions in the history of the US. So it's like super cool for all the partners involved. But I will tell you what happened after. We all did well financially, but what happened after was I went to 2 years of manic depression. And the sadness around that was, out of the 700 plus agents that we had, I had personally attracted or welcomed, call it 699 of them, almost every one of them. And they all got a new brand. They did well. And I got a check and I got a great story. And so I felt terrible that the folks that helped me build something amazing were not financially rewarded in that process. Mm-hmm. And it just broke my heart. And so I promised myself, Tricia, that anything that I did going forward in my life would always be on the co-ownership model. That is, everybody that was part of it would own a part of it. And so of coming to Real was a really, important step for me because we all own this company together. And that was foundational in this process. So when I came to Real originally, we had roughly, when my first introduction to Real, we had roughly shy of 5,000 agents. And so 5,000 to almost 23,000 in under 24 months. So it's been a good run for us.
Yeah. And I would say, so with all of that and 700 agents, #1, with you being involved in 698 or 99 of them is a lot. And that's a lot of responsibility, a lot of training. And you get out there, you're still in the trenches in real estate right now. Why do you do that?
Well, being in the trenches is good because there is no way for the average executive to understand what it's like to be an agent, to work on things on a day-to-day basis. They just don't know. And it's not that it's good or bad. It's just, I just think that being in the trenches and being in the living rooms, and I do 100 flips a year, like doing the transactions, right, gives you the pulse of the market and also knows what agents are going through. So when someone says the market is slow, I know what that means. I know what it feels like. I know what if I go into an appointment with an agent in a living room, I know what the NAR conversation is related to the commission story. Yeah. And the reason that is important is it allows us not to say, oh, I was an agent with a license 30 years ago. I'm like, there's a lot of executives with an agent with a license from 30 years ago. I'm sorry, you have zero context of the world, right? Because just, I'd say even from COVID on today, there was a big change. And then you have all the NAR stuff on today. That's a completely big change. You overlay all of that with the rates, there's a completely big change. And then you overlay all of that with like affordability, there's completely big change. So there is the executives that tell me, the leaders that tell me that, oh, I have a real estate license. I'm like, your real estate license need to be thrown out. It's on parchment paper. Like it's so, you're completely connected from the world. Right. And so the reason, Trisha, this is important is you would not, I have my son is 13. My daughter is 8. I would not get my son golf lessons from a pro that can't hit a golf ball.
No.
Like that. And so how I think about the world a lot is if you, for the things that require technical skill, which is our business, right? It requires a lot of skill. Like you need to know how to manage contracts, manage relationships, manage negotiation, manage vendors, manage time. There's a lot of skill involved. For the things that involve skill, I think you need somebody that you learn from or work with or talk to that has skill. But other things like, a mission, vision, values, and like thinking about your thinking about like your mindset, etc. I think that anybody can do. Like there are good coaches out there that can do all of that. But if you're looking for the ability to do something in professional services to have technical expertise, you without that knowledge, I don't get to decide or choose what's important for you and on our agents on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, I'm disconnected, and so then we build the wrong things.
Yep.
Right? And so that being I think that the idea of like being in the trenches is super important now more than it has ever been.
I agree with you 1000%. If you look at a lot of the top people that are doing things, they're still in the trenches because they have to stay relevant.
Of course.
Sharran, like going back, because you've been in this for a bit and you've been, selling it to Douglas Elliman was huge. And you said that was the largest transaction. Going from managing those 700 agents to where you are today, what do you see as one of the biggest differences in real estate then versus now?
Yeah, I think the big change of then versus now is that the world has shown that there are more models.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's while it seems basic, it's not. And what that is it's a really great advantage for real estate agents because you're like, listen, there cannot be a better time to be alive as a real estate agent right now, because the entire world is saying, how can I come up with new models to support agents?
Yes.
Right. And so agents, for some reason, I want to flip this for a lot of agents. Like you should be really happy because for the first time in a long time, everyone else is fighting to build you something better. That's super cool if you think about it, right? Like
it is.
And so before, like you call it 15 years ago, the only innovation that we had was we're like, oh, let's go to a capped model. Or let's go. I mean, literally, capping was the most innovative thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, let's get a new CRM. If you've noticed, right, the conversations are not around what CRM do you use anymore, or what's the next lead source anymore. Like, yeah, you may have some of those basic conversations, but that's not in it right now. The conversations are, what business model should I actually employ? Should I take ZillowFlex leads or not? For how long? Should I have an ISA that's calling my stuff? Do I have an investing component to my business? Do I actually, do I have a big enough brand like you have a big enough brand and a big network where I can help more agents and actually participate in revenue share as a business partner with them? And so it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And now most agents kind of like 10 plus years ago did not have access to co-ownership of anything, right? No. And so now you co-own the business and it's publicly traded and you have access to liquidity. So the new models are really powerful. And I think the biggest mistake, and I don't use that word lightly, the biggest mistake that an agent can make right now is poo-pooing a model. without knowing much about it, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't think every model is for everybody. I just think that, but it's important for us to know our options. There's a great
Oh,
quote,
yeah.
by the way. It says, when you don't know your options, you don't have any.
Oh,
And you know, it makes me think a lot about, so now I'd say if you're an agent, you don't just be open to the models and the options that are
yeah.
out there. Maybe you will hear something that you can just include in your business right now without making any changes, but knowing the model, knowing the options allows you to recraft a newer business model. Because I think now more than ever, so many people, companies, agents, venture capital firms, brokerages are all innovating to give agents an advantage. And I think it's a great time to be alive as a real estate agent.
I never thought of it like that. I love that you said that. I've been saying for probably, oh my gosh, 3 or 4 years now that I think we're seeing the death of the single agent. And you hear now in Inman and all the reports that teams are the new thing, like the teams are going to take over and their teams running within, global brokerages and such. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So I think one of the cool parts about the real estate industry is that almost any model works if you work the model.
Yeah.
So the solo agent model does not work if you are a solo agent but want to be a team. You're like always thinking, man, I don't have those resources, et cetera, right? But I think today being very true to your model is really important. So I'll give you an example. My friend who just helped me buy a home, actually, an investment property. Her name is Andrea Duane. She lives in outside of Sacramento, California. She's a single agent, but she has 4 team members around her, and she'll make $1 million this year, right? So now that's pretty powerful. So she's built her business in such a way that she runs all of it, and her team and her staff support her to getting there. Now, that a lot of people are like, well, is that the right model? It's the right model for her. She's designed that model really well. But I'll tell you, Tricia, why the teams are why they're getting a lot of traction these days. And the reason is real estate's a very isolating solo profession, right? You wake up in the morning and you're like, man, let's just say I sold through all my listings and I have a couple active buyers. Well, I feel like I need to put some points on the board. I feel like I need to create momentum. And no one's checking up on me or supporting me to do that. I have to do it all myself. And the loneliness of the business is dramatically mitigated by being on a small, mighty team or a larger team, because it creates the camaraderie and the support system. And like multiple people are trying to do the same thing. I think that's really powerful. The second is it's easier for the teams to make financial investments on things, right? I can go get leads. I can have an ISA. I can build systems, etc. But the solo agent is thinking, man, if I sold this home, then I'm going to take a portion of this into marketing and actually do some Q4 marketing campaigns or what have you, right? But if the home got delayed and it didn't sell for a while, now they're floating their expenses. So they're able to innovate not as fast as the bigger teams, because the teams can now say, hey, we can go help Tricia and Sharran actually get success very quickly. And I think what teams do is they allow you, they collapse the curve to get you success much faster, which gives people confidence, right? So I think it's a very positive thing. What I believe is, I tell teams and solo agents this: just be ultra clear about the model that you're operating in. If you're a lead-based team, go build a lead-based team. If you're a training-based team, go build a training-based team. If you're a small and mighty team with 2 partners and 2 VAs, that's cool. Be the small and mighty team with 2 partners and 2 VAs, and don't have FOMO of someone else. So the teams that have the models, the solo agents or teams that have very clear acceptance and adoption of their model will just do better, because they'll work their model very well. And what I call having model drift, when you start having model drift, that's when you're like, oh man, I want to be like Tricia. I want to be like Sharran. Oh, she's spending $100,000 a month on leads. I should too. But you don't have the capacity to do that, because you don't have the ability to do that. And so the FOMO is what really crushes people. And so as long as people stay true to their model, I think they win.
I'm here in Houston, and we do have a big team, and I'm in the trenches too. I'm out there in sellers' homes every day, and I say this to people all the time. It seems lately, I don't know what's happening with our industry, but the more people I'm interacting with, the dumber I think these agents are, and I don't know who's training them or not training them, and it's such a disservice to our industry. Are you seeing the same thing, Sharran?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll actually tell you why. And so, a lot of it was a function of COVID. And I mean this in a very positive way. During kind of COVID time or the pandemic time, we were in what I like to call a momentum-based market. By the time you actually did something, everyone wanted to buy something or sell something or just take advantage of the fast moving market, low rates, etc. So everything moved super fast. So what happened to the everyday agent was they were more just managing the speed of how fast consumers were reacting. And they were just like, and the average agent complained then too. They're like, oh, I'm too busy. Right.
Oh yeah.
And but what happened then was it took away the need for skill and advisory.
Oh yeah.
Because things were moving that fast. Well,
Yeah.
when we transitioned from a momentum-based market to what we have now, which is a skills-based market, right? Most agents are like, well, I don't have it. That's why you're seeing agents drop out, et cetera, because now I have to put effort into learning the skills.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is, Trisha, I will tell you, we as self-appointed leaders of this industry, we are at fault. We didn't, it's not the agent's fault that they don't have the skill. It's our fault for not actually delivering and packaging and educating people, saying, hey, every single agent needs to have this as a standard. And so that's why internally, if you see it real, like I'm like, hey, every single person should know my listing presentation process and my buyer presentation process. If you have one on your team, great. If you don't, at least have mine as a baseline, right? In the process overall. So I think that we as brokers, owners, managers, leaders, influencers can do better and put and convert everything that we're doing to do a skills based industry and not a momentum based industry. I will tell you a really big thing is most agents don't know any different. So what they see is they see Trisha and they see Trisha today. And they say, well, if Trisha's doing all of these 7 things today, I should do those 7 things. No, you're not. You as the everyday agent, you're not modeling Trisha of today. You need to model Trisha of 20 years ago.
Yes.
All the, all the door knocking she did, all the cold calling she did, all the skills that she learned, all the role play that she did, all of that you don't see. That's what you should be modeling, but you can't see that. So what the modern day agent models is what all these coaches and consultants tell them of the agents that they put on stage, and they just model marketing. So they've created this feeling in the real estate industry that this real estate industry is a marketing based industry when it's actually not.
No.
Right? Because how many times have we, Trisha, how many times have we seen in our MLS a dumb agent put a home on the market, mispriced with photos from their iPhone, and it still sells just fine?
Yes.
Right? But we've seen it happen.
Yes,
And
shockingly.
Right. So that proves that there is so much more to the puzzle than just pretty photos and drones and like fancy Instagram, right? And so, but all we have noticed and we see is this amazing focus on like an agent should do better marketing. In fact, I've actually seen agents who show up at a listing appointment and instead of calling it a listing presentation, they call it a marketing presentation. And I'm like, you're missing the entire point. They don't want marketing. They want a buyer.
Yeah.
That's what the client wants, right?
Yes.
And so I think we can do the level of skill is quite, it's low in our industry, right?
Is.
And so if you're just 3 scripts deep, you're probably top 1%, which is crazy to me.
It is insane.
Yeah.
You know what's even funnier is that, and coaches, I love coaches, and I think people need to pay attention to who they're paying attention to. I think there's too many people that are calling themselves coaches now, and it's like you've never done anything. Yeah. Data shows that the average homeowner expects someone that is a market expert. That's what they want, because they already think they know more than us anyway, because with the internet, they can learn as much as they possibly can. They want a market expert, and they're willing to pay for that. Right. And I think the people that know the market and can, like I tell our agents all the time, and I'm the one that trains them to talk to sellers. I take them on appointments and I tell them I can go into anyone's door, whether it's worth $10 or 10 million, and I'm comfortable in that conversation, and I can look them in the eye, and I know my numbers, and I know the presentation, and there's confidence in my presentation, and there's an authority. And when you can do that, you'll own the market. And I think there's so few people teaching that these agents are out there just, number one, making our industry look unskilled and untrained. But number two, they're the average agent making less than $39,000 a year, which is insanity to me.
Well, you're 100% right. And the reason you have the confidence is because you have the skill, right? And so why are we like, I always tell people this, and you may laugh when I tell you this. So why are we able to get in, was the everyday agent able to get in their car, in their garage every morning, They are looking at their phone. They're fixing their hair. They're have a cup of coffee. They're eating, something. They back out of the garage without even looking at anything, and they don't hit any cars. So they're able to put on their seatbelt, drink their coffee, eat their muffin, fix their hair, brush their teeth, floss, all while backing up at the same time. Like, you're operating heavy machinery and doing 12 things at the same time, right? And that
Yes.
is way harder from a skill perspective than learning what to say to a consumer when they walk in an open house. And
Yep.
the crazy part is the agent doesn't realize that the reason they're able to do something so complex is because they have reps and they have a skill, right? And they've built these reps to be able to do that. And that's all we're asking for is like, do a little bit of role play, do a little bit of reps.
Yes.
And the reason also is, since a lot of our industry is focused on, hey, to blame the lead.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, hey, I want more. I will pay more money to get more leads, and then I will never call them.
Yes.
And then, because we know that like 1 out of 7 paid leads do not even like get called. 6 out of 7 don't even get called.
Yeah.
Which is wild. So you won't call them, which is okay, by the way. But the crazy part is, and then we just say, oh yeah, there's just a bad lead, or Facebook leads suck, or whatever else you say. But no one ever talked to them about, hey, this is exactly what you say to an online lead. The online leads, half-baked cycle of half-life is 18 months.
Yes.
So you can't just run a Facebook ad and expect, hey, come list me tomorrow. So small things like that are all skill-based. And the only way you get it if you talk to us, because we spent and wasted a ton of money, in this process saying, why am I not getting the lead tomorrow? And so the skill component is what I really am excited about, because a lot of agents have been taught the marketing component, which I think is very valuable.
It is.
But once they get in the appointment, it stops. And if we can just get more skill, we'll have a skilled agent will beat an unskilled agent 10-1.
I agree. I interviewed a guy last week named Sean Getty. I don't know him. He's in Canada. And I saw his story on Instagram, and literally he talked about in 2019, he had tried to kill himself twice, and he had lost his wife, lost his job, lost his home, lost everything. Was unsuccessful in killing himself because he was afraid. He couldn't, he was going to let go. He was up on a balcony. He was going to let go of the rail, and he couldn't do it 2 times. And then he decided, and he said in Canada, the average days on market was 300 plus. It's like, oh my gosh. Then he decided that year that he put a date on his calendar, December 31, 2019 was going to be his last day on earth. Had he not been able to turn his life around, he was going to kill himself that day, and he was going to stick to it. In what he did, Sharran, and now that was 5 years ago, because here is November 2024. He has a 57 agent team now. He's doing very well. He had amassed a mountain of debt. He was an atheist, which I didn't know. That came out during the podcast too. He found God, and he's alive, clearly. You know how he did it? Door knocking, calling cold and warm leads, and open houses. That's it, Sharran.
Tricia, let's spend like 2 minutes. For those that are listening, I'll give them a couple of skill-based things that they can kind of take away, right?
Yeah.
A couple of frameworks and a couple of things that we can say. The easiest thing that most agents want to do is they want to come out looking smart. They want to like crush the objection. You don't have to do any of those things, right? You just have to always stay in conversation, because all conversion happens in conversation. So the first thing I teach most agents is this idea of a sorting question. And when you ask a sorting question, you're asking a this or that. So for example, when someone walks into an open house, skill-wise, every 80% of agents will say, hi, Tricia. So, so glad you could make it. What brings you in today? I'm like, what do you mean? What brings me in today? It's an open house. Like, what do you think brings me in today? But instead, if you ask a sorting question, because they're already walking into someone else's house, they're already feeling like they don't know where to go or what they can do, et cetera. If I said, hey, Tricia, welcome. Did you see the signs, or did you find us online? Now, what I'm doing is I'm doing a sorting question. Did you see the signs, or did you find us online? Now, if you said I saw the signs, now I know. I'll be like, oh, amazing. Do you live in the neighborhood, or are you just visiting somebody, right? Again, sorting question. Now I'm making it really easy for them to answer those questions. This is what the skill is all about, because in a 4 to 5 second period, I have mechanical rapport with that person, and they have not had to think a lot. There's no open-ended questions. Like, people have misunderstood this idea. Like, if you ask, oh, what would you like life to be like in 5 years? Like, that makes the person think. They have to stop and think. That's the open-ended question. I don't want to ask any of that. I want to get mechanical rapport by asking simple questions, because now they're in conversation with me. And then they're like, man, I'm in conversation with this guy. He's not half bad. I want to talk to him more, because all conversion happens in conversation. So the first thing is this sorting question. A lot of times I'll even tell, I manufacture the sorting questions. I'll say, hey, are you looking for homes in Laguna, or are you open to homes outside of Laguna too? Again, it's a sorting question, because now I don't have to say, are you looking for area A or area B? I can just do, it's called a generic sort. Hey, are you looking for this, or are you open to something else as well?
Yes.
So now it's a sorting question, right? And so most agents, if they just kind of get the skill of asking sorting questions, it makes everything go a lot easier. So if someone says, oh, in the living room, someone says, oh, Jimmy said he'd do it for 2%. And you're like, I'm sorry, 2% of the purchase price or something else. And now the burden of explanation is back on the client.
I
So
like
they have to
that.
explain it, right? So instead of saying, well, if Jimmy can do it for 2%, we can do more. Or it's like, hey, are you more worried about the 2% or worried about the net? Like, that's fine. But instead, I want to give them a chance to explain. So I ask simple, soft sorting questions, and an agent can figure out that skill. It's really powerful. And the crazy part is, I use it with my wife. I use it with my children, And so I don't say, hey, where would you kids like to go to dinner? I'd be like, hey, would you like pizza or would you like Italian? They're like, well, we'd like neither. So that's good, because now I can toss the whole thing and I can say, all right, would you like a burger or would you like pasta? And so now they stay within context with me, as opposed to all of them getting upset and saying, oh, we have no place to go to have dinner, right? So sorting questions are really powerful. That's kind of number one. I'll give you one more for everybody, right? Which is, most people don't realize this idea of being soft when you ask for something. And so, people will say things like, oh, have you ever had any thoughts of selling? Well, that's fine, but that's very aggressive. Like, I would never ask my grandma that. I'd be like, hey, grandma, have you ever had any thoughts of selling? And I'll tell you the crazy part, right? And some version of that, I'm not picking out. I've heard that version before.
Yeah.
And my grandma said something interesting. So this guy who is my friend, he said, he's a life insurance salesperson, right? He says, he's like, Sharran, do you know what the equivalent of have you ever had any thoughts of selling is in the life insurance business? I said, I don't know. He goes, so you would say, have you ever had any thoughts of dying? Right. But like, it's interesting if you flip it like that, you realize that's actually like, I would never ask my grandma, have you ever had any thoughts of dying? That's weird, right? So what is a way from a skill perspective that you can ask a soft question and get the answer that you want? So you would ask something like this. I would say, hey, Tricia, has anyone taken the time to sit down and walk you through what it takes to buy a home in today's market? Now, that is way better, because now you may say, well, I talked to my aunt and she lives in Dallas, but she advises me. She thought she was giving me some ideas. So now I know that there's a aunt who's an agent in Dallas, right? And I also know that you probably have not sat down with anybody. So now I can say, hey, why don't we sit down and go through this process? Now you're giving me the invitation to do that. So I can say, has anyone taken the time to sit down and walk you through what it takes to buy a home in today's market? Or has anyone taken the time to sit down and walk you through what is actually important when you sell a home? Has anyone taken the time frame is so soft, because right away that the other person will say, yeah, my wife is an insurance agent. And then that you can't bother them, right? It's super easy. So anytime I get stuck in a conversation, I'll be like, hey, Tricia, has anyone taken the time to kind of like sit down and walk you through what it actually means to live right here in Houston? And then you're like, well, no one really has done that. You're like, well, if it's okay with you, how about we grab a cup of coffee, and then before your coffee gets cold, I'll give you the 10 things that most Houston home buyers need to know, so that you can make an informed and intelligent decision whenever you choose. So now I'm being ultra soft in this process, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So I call it the game plan frame. The game plan frame is, every time you get stuck, you ask the question, hey, has anyone taken the time to blank? And that softens it completely. So if the everyday agent just knows sorting questions and the game plan frame, you literally can door knock, cold call, do whatever, because you can keep the conversation going. And we know that all conversion happens in conversation.
That's interesting that you say that. So when you look at especially now where they're reporting the numbers and what we've seen in the last 2 years in the market, what is your take on the market overall in the last 2 years and numbers? What's your thoughts on all of that?
So a couple of things that have happened that has affected most people, right? So the historical average was roughly 5.1 million transactions happening every year in the US. This year we had I think the last 18 months we were tracking 4-ish. So we're off 20-ish%.
Oh yeah.
Right. And in certain markets, Houston, Dallas, LA, et cetera, the higher end markets, at least, they were off significantly. Like LA, I live in Laguna Beach, but LA was off 45%.
Wow.
Which means there's 40, which means like 50% of transactions are not happening, right?
Yeah.
And so, which is wild. And then you also have what, close to 70% of mortgages are under 4.5%. And so people are like, well, I don't really have any incentive to move. So the question now becomes, it's not more marketing, is what is the skill in these conversations, right? And so that's super important. The second one is, there has never been a more important time to have lifetime nurture with our clients in our sphere. I don't love calling them past clients because they're not dead. It's past.
No,
they're private clients in a lot of ways. So I think once a client, always a client. But how do you stay in touch with them? I think now more than ever, the average lead generation is less valuable than folks that are getting the referrals. So the question is, how do you stay in touch with clients more? So I'm thinking a lot about the market, which is, hey, can I try to talk to clients that essentially are saying, like an email that I would write, essentially that said, hey, Trisha, the market has been volatile with rates for the last 18 to 24 months. For the first time, we've seen sub 7% rates. Would you like me to let you know when the rates go below 6%? Now, if I wrote that email and sent it out to my entire database, something interesting happens. Say 20 people respond and say, yes, Sharran, like, let me know when the rates go below 6%. I know those 20 are worth a conversation with.
Yeah.
Because they're waiting for something in the world to happen for them to doing something. And that's what agents don't realize. Agents are thinking, hey, I've got a great deal. I'm just going to hammer my database or get marketing around it. What I want to know is, what are the triggers that my clients, my sphere, my prospects are waiting for, so that I can talk to those? Because in our world, 3 to 4 extra transactions can mean life-changing money for a lot of people.
Yes.
And so I'm on this big lifetime nurture campaign idea of, you have 100 clients. How well do you know them? What mortgages do they have? What do they want to buy? What do they not want to buy? Are they triggered by a particular area or a particular school district or taxes, or particularly what are they? That way, I think now is more important than any other time to find like really custom solutions for our clients till the market recovers, so we can do more in a broader scale.
When you talk like that, and I love all of that, you hear a lot of people are talking about AI. Of course, it's everywhere, and who knew it was going to take off as fast as it did, and the capabilities is like limitless.
Yeah.
And so now, half the time, I like, are you talking to a robot or is that a real person? What do you think AI is going to do to the real estate industry moving forward, and how do you think it's going to change the industry?
I'm really excited for, I use AI every day. I'm really excited for the artificial intelligence component of the world. I think more about AI as a really smart assistant. Now, one of the things that I prefer most people do is, if you have a client talking to a piece of AI, tell them they're talking to a piece of AI. I'm a big fan of just transparency around that. I don't think we want to posture ourselves that we are like, you don't want the Trisha Turner, you want the Trisha Turner bot, right?
Yeah.
So they know that it's Trisha, and it's not Trisha live, but it's Trisha's bot. And that's cool, because they will talk to a bot differently than they talk to a person, right? And I think it's wildly accepted now, because like a lot of times, if I go on a website, like if I go on an American Express website and I'm looking to change my password or whatever, I'd be happy to talk to a bot by saying, hey, change my password, right? And it's totally okay.
Yes.
The crazy part is, it's no different than, if you think about it, you're going to think this is really rudimentary, but like, when you call United Airlines or what have you, right? It takes you to a phone tree. Well, yeah. What is the phone tree? It's literally AI, right? And so all we're saying is, instead of pressing 1 for reservations and 2 for baggage claim and 3 for whatever, we're just talking to a piece of AI that can guide us to the right spot so that we can get the right answer. So I'm a big fan of what AI can do. I would love for agents to utilize AI more in one area, and it's not marketing. It's actually data analysis. Okay. So a lot of times I'll tell you this, like I buy a lot of flips. And so when agents send me CMAs, literally I upload the entire CMA into ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey, here's 3 properties that my agent sent me with the comparables. Can you break down and analyze each of them for me and tell me which one is the best, right? So my son, Trisha, he's 13 years old. He wanted to buy his first investment property this summer. I didn't teach him how to analyze a property. Our agents emailed him stuff. He took that, he put the MLS tear sheets into ChatGPT, and he said, analyze this property. Is it better or worse than the last one? And I think that agents can do more that way, especially if you go to your MLS and do like a days on market study for the last 2 years or whatever. And you take that and you put it into AI, and you're like, hey, I'm an agent that sells that, that does a lot more listings here in the Woodlands. Here's what I do, right? And then you can say, I want to tell my client, next time I'm in an appointment with my clients, they keep asking me about rates. Give me 5 insights on rates. And here is the rate graph from the last 5 years. Now let AI deconstruct that and give you the right information, because we are now, the only information we get, Trisha, is some analyst or some market-centric source that is sent, who give us paid data,
Yes.
who are interpreting this data for us. But all that, they're not interpreting Houston or the Woodlands data for us. They're just interpreting like broad-based US data, right? So if we can take local market data and have this really smart engine deconstruct this data for us, it may pull out insights that we have never even seen otherwise, which could be super helpful for a client. So I'm a big fan of, as soon as you've done your CMA, as soon as you've done any kind of math, as soon as you have any charts, drop those into the AI, see what insights it can give you. Tell it you're going to a client appointment and how you can present this data well. Those bullet points are insanely powerful, because that there's 2 things that AI does very well. It can do code very well. It can do math very well, better than us. So let it do more code and let it do more math and give us the insights.
I think, a long time ago, my dad always said, my dad was an entrepreneur, and he always said, if you're going to work for yourself when you grow up, make sure that you do something where robots can never make you become obsolete. And so that was a long time ago. It's like, well, what could that be? Well, I was at a conference not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, actually, and we were talking about that very thing. What can you tell the kids like today? Like, what could you look at when you're going to be a grown-up that's not going to become obsolete? Because now that we have artificial intelligence, it's like, well, in fact, even Joe Rogan said it. So you can't become an accountant. They're not needed anymore. You can't do graphic design. They're not needed anymore. Coding, they're not needed anymore. And then he went on to say, and they're even saying that they're going to have AI robots take over the trucking industry, because it's such a huge industry. And the person he was interviewing was like, that'll be detrimental to so many people with jobs. And I'm listening to this thinking, it will, holy crap. And then you get sometimes these naysayers, they're like, oh yeah, you guys in the real estate world are next. What say you to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let's think about how AI and automation and software takes over, right? So let's take a very simple example, which is Amazon.
Yeah.
So you go on Amazon and you're like, hey, I want to look for blue t-shirts, and you type in blue t-shirts. And Amazon has a database of all these blue t-shirts and all these blue providers. It already has a predefined database and a predefined process, right? And a system. So if I ask for blue t-shirts, it's able to call its predefined SOP to find blue t-shirts and show it to me. Then when I click a button and I want to order it, it's cool. There's a process. Hey, you put your credit card in, or it's pre-saved, and it charges your card and it deducts money from your bank, and then it sends you an email. Cool. There's a process, right? And then that t-shirt is then sent to a distribution center to get packaged and shipped and mailed to you. That's a process. The reason Amazon is able to do all of these things is what Amazon has done really well. It put a human interface in front of us with all these pre-existing processes that are already established behind us, right? And none of them, like finding the blue t-shirt or charging your credit card or shipping the t-shirt, does not require human intelligence to make any decisions.
No.
It's just 3 processes.
Yeah.
However, now that's why they're able to automate and do a lot more efficiencies around that business. Now let's take real estate. Well, what is our job as a real estate professional is so complex. We have to talk to a buyer, talk to a seller, talk to home warranty, talk to title, talk to mortgage, something broke. We talked to the appraiser didn't come out right. Like there's no process or system behind it. And we get paid to bring all of these disjointed third parties together who have no process or system whatsoever. Now you overlay macro trends. Now you overlay what happens on a state by state, county by county basis. You know this, like you could go out 2 counties and some of them, they don't need one report, but some of them need some other report. Right. And so is there a process for that? Sort of, but not really, because the board and the MLS just tells you need this extra form, but there's no, some agents do it and they still get it wrong. Some agents don't do it and still get it right, but there's no predefined process. Right. So it's easier to automate things or to put technology behind things that have some recognition of a system or process that is disjointed that you can bring together. What we have to do is we have to bring together disjointed humans, emotions, people people that are not connected to each other,
Oh,
who
yeah.
have, and that is very hard to do. And so I don't think we replace the agent anyway. I think the agent still stays in the center of the transaction. Now, how the agent works with all the other pieces may change, which is maybe there's one platform where the mortgage is automatically ordered. Maybe there's one platform where the titles are, and now the agent's playing this clearinghouse kind of role. But someone still needs to outsource to us to manage the transaction of their most important asset. And they don't know how to do it. There is no playbook on how to buy the house. In fact, I'll tell you the craziest thing. We have agents that don't know how to sell houses.
Yes, we do.
Right. So, and I mean that in a very positive way.
For sure.
So if we have agents who are licensed in this process who don't know how to sell houses, you can almost guarantee that consumers can't. And so there's probably a technology overlay to make yours and my life easier with tools, etc. But so you probably see a more efficient agent in the future who can probably do more transactions, is smarter, who has a Trisha Turner bot that you can just ask questions to, say, hey, your team needs to be able to say, hey, write a contract for Sharran for this address and send me a draft. Right? That makes sense because we now don't have to go to a 57-page contract, make sure we missed the DocuSign initial on one page. Like this is proof in the trenches, right? The average executive does not understand this because I know there have been contracts where I've missed initials on page 57. I know that, right? And so that things like that can be automated and kind of streamlined, but the negotiating with humans, making sure the psychology of the clients are maintained, making sure you manage like, hey, this person didn't get what they wanted, but that person did. So I have to kind of bridge that. All of that is difficult. And so I think having the human interface in there is super important, but we probably get a more efficient agent. But I don't see, unless the process of like day-to-day process of how a real estate transaction is recorded in a state and county register, unless that dramatically changes, we are front and center to every transaction.
I've noticed in the last, and probably since COVID, if anything, because the market was so crazy during COVID and in Houston and Texas really, but Houston definitely, we normally see like housing appreciation somewhere between 2.4 and 3.4 every year. However, during COVID, we didn't. It went to 11%, 13%. So just crazy. I've noticed that since COVID, the real estate professional is become more of an advisor to these homeowners and home buyers. Like I see more and more time being spent with them. Like you may end up going to a listing presentation and you may just turn into a counseling session really. And is this the right time for them financially? Is this a smart decision? And it more so becomes an assessment and not, I'm going to tell you your numbers all day long. Here you go. But let's have a conversation like, what's the goal? And I think the people that can master that craft of really actively listening to what the other person's needs and wants are, and then articulating that and putting a plan in place and stop worrying about, well, I need to hurry up and sell a house because I got to pay my bills. I think those are the people that are going to rise to the top through all of this.
You're spot on. And I will tell you, to give agents confidence in this process, so I've done close to 2,000 flips.
That's a lot.
Right. And not including anything else. On every single transaction, I worked with an agent. 100% of that. I don't need to. I could totally have written this out. I could have done everything myself. I don't need to at all. And I could have saved the 2.5 points on each side. I could have done all of that. And we also work as investors in the model where whoever Trisha brings us a deal, Trisha gets the list. So it's a very simple model. So all agents know that if they bring me something, they get paid on the buy side and they get paid on the list. And it like works really well because they bring me more deals. But the crazy part is almost 2,000 flips. And I have worked with an agent on every single side. Right. And so people need to realize that even though I do it in my market and I have the expertise and I understand how to do it and I've done it so many times and I can see around the corners, I still work with an agent because there is this inherent value that an agent brings to the table that I just can't do. And they call it the principal agent problem, right? And so now I can't negotiate for myself because I'm deeply emotional about what I want and what I don't want. And so I don't even have the layer in this process. So especially if it's my personal residence, I'm even more having a support system or an advisor in this process to buffer me, because otherwise I'm just talking through emotion and not negotiating, in the best possible way.
When you look at our industry as we are, coming into 2025, and I was reading this study, it's the 10-year business cycle, and I'm certain that you've heard of it, but this study shows that every business goes through a 10-year business cycle, not just real estate, every business. And in the 10-year business cycle, you're going to have 2 amazing years. You're going to have 6 good years, and you're going to have 2 years that absolutely almost make you go out of business. And I've told people, what if we're just now coming out of these 2 years that have been just horrible? Because I know a lot of people that are depleting their savings, and they have no reserves left, and they're really coming to an end. And what if we're headed into those 2 amazing years? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm actually, I'm a student of history. There's a reason why these cycles work the way they do. There's a general kind of expansion and contraction of the economy, only because there's so many forces that are intertwined in this. That's why you see these patterns, and these patterns are very important to know. However, I will tell you, the everyday agent does not want to hear that from us, right? They just don't, right? They're like, well, what if these next 2 years are worse? So like, what if this happens, or what if that happens? And so I go to a different place, Trisha, and my place is, I'm on a mad dash to helping agents in their markets find an input-output formula. And to me, almost everything in the world has an input-output formula. I'll give you an example. How many times have we met somebody, a friend from many years ago, and you've not seen them in a year, and then you see them today and they've lost a lot of weight?
Yeah.
And we see them and we're like, hey, Sharran, what did you do? And almost all times, there's only 2 answers: diet and exercise. And the crazy part is, we know that they manage nutrition and they manage their exercise. Now, some people have sleep and they got some help, whatever. I get it all. But generally speaking, it's diet and exercise. And we know that. And there's an input-output formula for that. And most people are just not unwilling to utilize the input formula. And so if you told most real estate agents, the reason they jump around with different lead gen sources or different business models is because they don't have full confidence that based on these inputs, I'm going to get that output.
Yeah.
And we got to get, the tighter we get to that, the better it is. Now, it can be as something as simple as, hey, we found out that on average, for every 40 conversations that you have in the real estate world, you get 1 deal. Now, that's normalized across marketplaces. Maybe in Houston, it's a little lower, and maybe in LA, it's a little higher. But roughly, in a 10-year study, roughly 40-ish conversations, real estate conversations that you can have with somebody. And those real estate conversations involve phone, text, email, DM, whatever, as long as you're talking real estate.
That's right.
Start the conversation. So if I'm using that as an example, but now I'm like, all right, I'm going to hang my hat on this input theory that if I have 40 real estate conversations, it's going to get me 1 deal. Now, if I believe that and I adopt that, now it's a very simple input-output formula. I wake up every morning and I am to do whatever it takes to generate 40 conversations today. I don't think about anything else. I don't go to bed until I have 40 conversations. And you do that over a 3-week period, and suddenly you're like, why do I have 17 properties under contract, right? But no one wants to do that because in their minds, they've made the 40 conversations in their head, but then they're like, well, if someone tells me no, they're going to yell at me. I don't have a script for it. What if they ask me this question? They don't have those conversations.
Yeah.
Right. And so, or if this is if someone wants to do geographic farming, we know that geographic farming takes 18, 24, 36 months. So we're like, okay, well, are they okay with that input-output formula? Or if it's an SOI based thing, you're like, awesome. You just can't call your SOI and be like, hey, Trisha, I'm checking in. You got to do more with your SOI. So what is that input output formula? So my big thing for agents is, can you get in a room with a best friend or another agent or a different marketplace or a coach or what have you, or a mentor like you, and say, hey, Trisha, if you had to give me a 5 bullet point plan on what I need to do for inputs, and you can assume that whatever you told me in these 5 bullet points, I would do. How would you advise me? And that's really powerful, right? So then I can tell an agent, hey, listen, you're gonna have 40 conversations. You're gonna send 1 email. You're gonna make 1 video, and you're gonna I don't know, touch your database, whatever. I come up with a plan, right? They know that, oh my gosh, these are my inputs to get the output that I want.
Yep.
And I think that's what real estate is in a lot of ways, which is when things that we don't control change, can we get back to our source of truth, which is what is the input that will give me the output? So what is the input output formula? I'm just very, very obsessive about what can I do on one side that will get me something on the other side, and within some degree of confidence. And for some reason, if I don't get it, then I can either work harder or change it. But otherwise, I'm constantly moving and having FOMO of other things. So I always advise people that no matter what's happening in the market, let's get a really tight input output formula, because then you have good confidence in what to do next.
When you're looking at statistics and projections for 25, and we've heard, there were some just reported today that we may see 5 million homes sold in 25. What's your thoughts on the 25 market?
I'm unsure about transaction count, but what I am more sure about is there's a normalized version of thinking about real estate. And so I think what happened is we got spoiled with very low rates.
Yeah.
And people have not been able to like pull their head out of, what do you mean this is not 3%, right? Like, what do you mean this does not have a 3 in front of it? I think that in call it the next 15, 20 years, like we're not going to see another 3% ever again. Like
I don't think so. Yeah.
Right. And so with that in mind, a 5 in front of it sounds pretty amazing if they think about it, but it's really hard for people to like walk through that gap. And I think what's happening, Trisha, is there's a stabilization. People are realizing that this is the new normal, because it's been this way for a while. And people are like, all right, I know that, most people are like, well, I think this is just going to blip up and come back down. And they've known that that is not true anymore. And I think that's kind of like number one. Number two is just with what's happening, what people are projecting with the new presidency is there's going to be pro-business.
Yes.
And Trump is pro-business, and whether you like it or not, he's going to act in a pro-business kind of way. And so if that means that if generally businesses are going to do better, they generally are going to pay employees more, they're generally going to have more growth. So we probably have people feel a little bit richer in their income, so they can negotiate their way out of this 3% in their mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to wager that it unlocks a lot more listings and a lot more buyers, because you're going to get more business-based growth. I will tell you what I believe. I believe that we are stepping into one of the biggest, baddest bull market runs of our lifetime, because it's not based on like low rates anymore. There's no artificially anchoring thing in our economy. Like we've gone through, like we have wars, we have we have inflation, we have all of these things. And in spite of all of this, I think with a pro-business based outlook, everyone's going to feel richer in the stock markets, meaning richer in their portfolios, easier access to debt, because they know that it's stabilized, and this is the new normal. So if that is truly the case, I think we're in for probably one of the biggest bull markets of our lifetime.
Sharran, you're so, I could sit here and talk to you forever, because you have so much wisdom and knowledge in you. And like, you have such a teaching heart. You guys, if y'all haven't followed Sharran, or you're not following Sharran, you need to, because he literally gives every single day to everyone. He's full of knowledge, and try this, and don't say this, and don't do this, do that. And it isn't just real estate, it's scaling businesses, it's everything. Like, Sharran, what does 25 look for you?
I am really excited about a couple of big things. One, on the professional front, I'm just really stoked for our growth at Real. I think we get a chance. This is not a pitch on anything, but out of the 23,000 agents we have at Real, I personally know close to 20,000 of them.
That's insane.
Right. But I mean this in a very positive way. And I have known a lot of them before I came to Real. So for me, all of these business partnerships with agents are very personal. Yeah. And so I get to see agents build and grow and thrive. And that is a really powerful thing for me overall. The second is we learn a lot. I learn a lot through the eyes of my children. I have 2 children, 13 and 8, and the lessons that they see and they feel and they learn, I can instantly see how it would impact me and the professional world in a lot of ways. I'm like, oh, I offered this, but he said that. That's a cool negotiation idea. Or he wanted to do this, but I learned that. And it's a very innocent way of like learning. And so a lot of first principle human learning, I think, happens as to how children react. So I spend a lot of my time with, a lot of my free time with my children.
Which is awesome.
Those learnings are really, really powerful for me. So that's kind of like the 2 big things. But the last thing I'll tell you is I think we're going to see some insane innovation in 2025. Things that we've not seen before. Like, we're already seeing self-driving cars. And that's, while people think that's weird, like I told my son this the other day, he has Hot Wheels, like this little Matchbox car that can do nothing. And I said, you're sitting in a Tesla that I'm not even driving. And it's like driving, think about innovation in a whole new way. And I think that, my son said something to me, which I think you'll really appreciate. I have a bunch of health issues, and so he's like, Dad, if something ever happened to you, I can just double hit the button and the car will just take us wherever we need to go. That's how he's thinking, right? And
Wow.
so super powerful, where you're starting to see practical applications of innovation. So I'm really excited to see what the world brings us from innovation and raw materials and thinking, because the more innovation you have, the more it expands human thinking. And the people realize that, man, with AI, I could do so much more, or with self-driving cars, I could do so much more, or what have you, right? And I think that innovation is the seed of us thinking bigger and better and having a bigger and better future. So I'm super grateful for what 2025 is going to bring for that.
I'm super grateful for you coming on here today. Yeah, and you guys, I've been trying to get Sharran almost maybe a year. Time. He's busy though. He is all over the world, like changing lives. And so I'm super thankful that this landed when it did, and it's Thanksgiving, and I'm thankful for you and all that you do, for sure.
No, I'm for people like you make this world go around, and I'm so grateful for you. The world needs a lot more Trisha Turner. So thank you for doing what you do.
Right back at you. You guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. Sharran, you have an amazing Thanksgiving. Where can they find you, Sharran, if they want to learn more about you?
So if I give all of my stuff away on every social platform. So Instagram's probably the easiest, but whatever your favorite social platform is, I'm on there. And so just grab me on there. Whatever I do is for free. So see if you like the stuff. And if you want to say something, just message me and I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye, y'all.